In 1637, René Descartes published a proposition that would become the baseline assumption of Western epistemology: cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. The implication of this statement is specific. It dictates that the cognitive mind, the apparatus that reasons, remembers, and generates thoughts, is the equivalent of the self. This framework built the foundation for modern cognitive science. We assume that identity, consciousness, and the observer are all housed within the thinking mind. Thousands of years earlier, classical Indian contemplative traditions, specifically the Samkhya Yoga framework formulated by Patanjali, constructed a completely different model. Classical Indian philosophy approaches this axiom from the opposite direction, treating the cognitive process not as the self, but as an object of perception. To understand classical Indian metaphysics, we have to look past the modern secularized versions of yoga and examine the original architecture of its reality. The central thesis of Patanjali Yoga is exact. The mind is not the seat of consciousness. It is not the true observer. Instead, the mind, the intellect, and the ego are categorized strictly as insentient matter. Under this system, the entity we call the self in the West is nothing more than a sophisticated biological computing terminal. In this tradition, realization is the act of decoupling the observer from the thought, a relocation of identity from the process to the witness. This relocation relies on the absolute dualism of Sankhya metaphysics. This system divides reality into two independent, irreconcilable categories. This diagram illustrates that absolute separation. The first reality is Purusha, represented here by the static luminous set. Purusha is pure, unconditioned witness consciousness. It is entirely passive and contains no material properties. The second reality is Prakriti. This represents all material reality and empirical phenomena, shown here as textured, shifting, and constantly active. The relationship between the two is defined by this equation. Purusha and Prakriti represent an empty intersection. The two sets never overlap. Prakriti does not merely refer to physical objects like rocks, trees, or the human body. As this expanded set shows, it encompasses the entire cognitive and emotional apparatus, including thoughts, memories, and the ego. Because these two realities never intersect, the true observer, Purusha, is eternally untouched by the mechanical fluctuations of the mind. To locate where the mind actually sits in this cosmic hierarchy, we have to map the exact internal structure of Prakriti. This schematic traces the top-down structural evolution of the 25 tattvas, or principles. Originating from the root of Prakriti, the first major manifestation is the buddhi, the intellect. The intellect processes data and passes it down to the ahamkara, the ego. This is the I-maker, the mechanism that creates the sense of individualized identity. From the ego, the structure branches outward, connecting directly to the physical sensory organs, like the eyes and ears, and to the manas, which is the mind. In this framework, the manas is explicitly defined as the sixth sense. It is an internal sensory organ whose sole function is to aggregate and interpret external stimuli. The mind is merely a processor of inputs. It is entirely composed of insentient matter, completely incapable of generating its own consciousness. This presents a paradox. If the mind is made of dead matter, why does human experience feel so vividly conscious and subjective? The answer lies in the mechanical flow of data. External stimuli enter through the physical senses and travel to the manas. This generates fluctuating mental waves known as chitta vrittis. The ahamkara, or ego, intervenes at this exact moment. It stamps these transient, mechanical waves with an I label, appropriating the action. The illusion is created when the pristine, separate light of Purusha reflects off these labeled mental modifications. The reflection causes the mechanical wave to glow, making it appear as if it is generating its own light. This specific mechanical reflection is the root of avidya, or ignorance. It is the misidentification of the eternal observer with the material fluctuations of the terminal. This is how identity is mechanically synthesized. The individual becomes trapped in a self-perpetuating cycle of psychological bondage by mistaking the machine for the ghost. When we examine modern, secularized adaptations of contemplative practices, we find them utilized primarily for stress reduction and corporate productivity. This table compares Patanjali Yoga with modern secular mindfulness. Notice the soteriological goal. Classical practice aims for absolute liberation. Modern mindfulness aims for psychological stabilization. As this row shows, modern mindfulness treats the ego as an asset to optimize. Classical yoga views it as insentient matter to isolate. Treating meditation as a mental optimization tool is an attempt to heal the ego. The original system was designed to dismantle it. Clinical, secular mindfulness fails the Eastern metaphysic because it actively reinforces the exact cognitive delusion that Patanjali designed the system to destroy. Apply this architecture to your immediate reality. The entity currently processing the syntax and logic of this video is not your consciousness. The act of thinking, listening, and understanding is exclusively the function of the cognitive apparatus. It is a material terminal processing data. Patanjali Yoga culminates in Kaivalya, the structural isolation of the witness from the cognitive machine. This final, isolated state is a direct inversion of the Cartesian axiom we started with. You do not think, therefore you are. You are, therefore you can observe the thinking.